I'm joined now by Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News. Adam, we have an explosive update in this feud that's erupted between Donald Trump and the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, Dow Jones, over the article that the Wall Street Journal published yesterday, alleging that they had found a letter that Donald Trump had written Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. Can you explain what this update is?
The update is that Donald Trump just filed an enormous defamation lawsuit in Southern Florida, alleging 2 counts of defamation. And he threw down the gauntlet. He didn't say in a social media post that the letter was fake. He's now saying in a lawsuit that the letter was fake, and he is claiming that the Wall Street Journal knew about it or that they recklessly disregarded the alleged fact that it was supposedly fake. So that is the crux of the lawsuit. He is claiming that the Wall Street Journal should have known that the letter that was published and showed the 50th birthday, the message to Jeffrey Epstein, along with the drawing of the naked woman, was as Trump claims, fake.
Adam, presumably the Wall Street Journal and the authors of this story knew that this lawsuit was coming. In fact, they even included Trump's threats of a lawsuit within the very story that's now the basis for the lawsuit. And so it would lend itself to reason that they would make sure that all of this stuff is buttoned up, knowing that you have a very litigious focus of this story waiting on the other end with his finger on the trigger. And so what does that tell you about the basis for this lawsuit, or conversely, how kind of foolproof the story is?
Well, the Wall Street Journal has a record of getting facts right. If you look at the reason why Donald Trump is a convicted felon of 34 felonies, it's because they got airtight a story that Stormy Daniels, the whole mechanism of the hush money payments, that was a Wall Street Journal scoop. And if you look at this story, look at the attribution of this story. It's not only about Donald Trump. It's about a number of letters that was received by Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday. There is one person mentioned in that story who disputes the authenticity of those letters, and it's Trump. You look at the other letters, and the people who they reached out to carefully for comment. One of them, Les Wexner, a billionaire, doesn't dispute the authenticity of the letter. Another, Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's former lawyer, doesn't dispute the authenticity of the letter if you look at his comment. Only one person does. It's Donald Trump. The FBI doesn't comment. The DOJ doesn't comment. If you're a major news organization, a national news organization like the Wall Street Journal, you are looking at everything very carefully. I am sure, especially amid the litigation threat, that this was taken all the way up the editorial chain and taken to the lawyers who looked at this every which way and said, yes, we have our attribution locked down. We are confident in publishing this, that we did this right. Now, and as a matter of fact, they were on notice. That's one thing that the lawsuit gets absolutely right. They quoted Donald Trump directly saying that A, he claimed that it was fake, and B, that he said he was going to sue them if they published. So they did know that Trump was threatening litigation and he was disputing the authenticity. And by the way, they also shared with their readers that Donald Trump disputes the authenticity of these newsworthy documents that we have duly in our due diligence sent to the other people who were said to have sent these letters for comment. So I think it's a vote of confidence that if Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal and the entire editorial team and their legal team looks at this, they were confident in it. And now it's in a court of law.
Okay, so a lot can happen between now and then, and I want to talk to you about that in a moment. But let's say we get into the courtroom. Is there going to be a moment where we have a definitive answer if they show these documents where we will know whether they're authentic or not? Like, will we have an answer at the end of the rainbow here?
Well, that is the challenge of Trump filing this lawsuit. A lawsuit isn't a social media post. During the discovery process, people will produce the letters. As a matter of fact, one of the things that was said, one of the allegations of the lawsuit is they didn't produce the letter. They didn't attach it to the story. I have a feeling that that letter and the drawing of the naked woman that was attached to it with the name Donald Trump mimicking pubic hair, according to the article, is going to surface. There's going to presumably be, if it gets there, expert testimony of, is this his handwriting? Is this by his hand? What's the evidence for it? What's the evidence against it? That's the thing that's going to have to be sussed out over the legal process if he is going to prevail. And even then, let's say hypothetically that the Wall Street Journal got it wrong and that this was a fake, as Trump claims. They're going to have to prove that the Wall Street Journal didn't have every reason to believe when they publish it, because of the actual malice standard, that this wasn't an authentic, newsworthy document. Those are all of the things that Trump is going to have to prove. And we have seen Trump try to, and being very successful in making major media organizations buckle to litigation when they're over issues like a common, editing
practice of editing, right?
Practice of editing, an interview with Kamala Harris, with the Paramount capitulation, with ABC News, the fact that there was an attribution of what a federal judge said attributed to a jury. We have seen those lawsuits that every legal expert has said was winnable. We've seen major media organizations buckle. So there are a couple of roads that this can go on. Road number one, this is extensively litigated, survives dismissal potentially. And if that happens, the process will probably discover some answers to what is this document. Maybe that document will surface on court records. We'll have expert testimony about the authenticity of the document. This gauntlet has been thrown, and this is what Trump invited by filing it.
Adam, you said at the top that the Wall Street Journal has a sterling reputation when it comes to facts. What is Donald Trump's reputation when it comes to these defamation lawsuits? I know that we've spoken about his lawsuits against some of these media companies, but look, there's a reason that CBS and Paramount decided to cave to Donald Trump. It's because they have a pending merger with Skydance, and so they have every reason in the world to do that. ABC News, Donald Trump is able to control so much of the federal government, the FCC, and so if ABC News has some entity with Disney that's looking to do a merger, and they need to curry favor with the FCC, like there's all these reasons that they might have a vested interest in playing nice. It doesn't seem that would be the case here, because again, if they wanted to play nice, knowing that there was a lawsuit hanging above their heads, they presumably just wouldn't have published it in the first place. And so if they're going to go to the mat on this thing, as it relates to the non-media outlet lawsuits that Trump has waged, what's his reputation with these defamation claims?
Well, we'll see. At least right now, to your earlier point before his reputation, we can talk about how in the Southern District of Florida, Trump has filed a lawsuit in the past against Hillary Clinton, this vast racketeering allegation that was earned a sanction for frivolous litigation in this very district. So, excuse me, that was the Middle District of Florida, but it was in federal court in the state of Florida. So he has a reputation of using litigation and legal might to try to get defendants to say uncle. And sometimes that works. That worked with Paramount, that worked with ABC News, and he might figure that he can put a lot of pressure on the Rupert Murdoch empire. We will see the merits of his lawsuit. He placed this gamble that if this goes to discovery, if this goes to trial, he's going to have to prove a couple of things. He's going to have to prove that to a jury that A, this was false, and that B, that the Wall Street Journal should have known that, and that they weren't just reporting on a newsworthy document, that they had reason to believe through their news gathering process had the marks of authenticity through their efforts to reach out to other people who were the subjects of their reporting and investigation and in their due diligence. He's going to have to prove all of that. And his record has been one of, can I get the defendant to say uncle when I file a lawsuit?
Right. But again, if the goal was to try and get his opponent here to say uncle, if there was any chance that the Wall Street Journal was looking to cave, was looking to play nice with Trump, they just wouldn't have published the story in the first place because they knew that a lawsuit was waiting for them on the other side of this thing. Right. So it doesn't look like he's going to have an easy route to being able to either get this thing dismissed or thrown out or settled at the end of the day. I do have to ask, because you've covered Donald Trump's previous defamation cases, you covered his E. Jean Carroll case extensively. Is there anything that's striking for you in terms of similarities between how Donald Trump comported himself in the E. Jean Carroll case and how he's comported himself in this Wall Street Journal case?
Well, I covered every day of the E. Jean Carroll case in federal court, and there was one thing that was very striking to me about Trump's response in his denial to the Wall Street Journal. He didn't say that he went a little farther in saying that this document is fake. What he said was, I've never written a drawing in my life. And it reminded me of what he said to E. Jean Carroll when he said, I've never met her. And when that case went to trial, the jury saw an eyeful of this photograph of E. Jean Carroll and her partner at the time with Donald Trump and Marla Maples at a party. It's a pattern with Donald Trump that he doesn't just say the flat denial. He goes out of the way to say something that there's hard evidence, usually a picture that disproves it. And if you look at what happened in this case when he said, I've never written a doodle in my life, well, half the internet has seen his drawings to charity, the photographs of the drawings of the New York City skyline with his signature, and everyone has seen them. But he says, I've never drawn. I think that if this ever gets to a jury can consider that. That was absolutely something that played out in the E. Jean Carroll case. And here we have a statement about the Trump's claims, whether he made a similar statement to the Wall Street Journal, and whether the Wall Street Journal knew that, Donald Trump actually does do drawings. This fits a pattern of behavior, and all of the other people we've reached out to comment to haven't firmly denied it or disputed the authenticity here. We're going to run it.
I have to say that I'm surprised that he even followed through with this lawsuit, because I just assume that if the Wall Street Journal is going to go ahead and publish it, they better make sure that their asses are covered. And so I would presume that all of this stuff is very well sourced. Nobody wants to get sued, especially at the hands of a very litigious opponent here that Donald Trump is. And so now that the Trump team has filed this lawsuit, is it basically the fact that they're going to see this thing through, or every single day we can any day it's possible or even likely that they can drop the lawsuit, that they can be looking to cooperate or strike a deal with the Wall Street Journal? Like, just because they filed this lawsuit does not necessarily mandate that this thing is on its way to trial, correct?
Correct. But I will say there was probably a time early in the ABC News litigation where one thought the major network, in a case that looked like what it looked like, that this was going to be fought all the way through. And there are Trump's threats and there are Trump's actions. I wasn't going to believe that Trump was going to follow through with this lawsuit until the lawsuit actually hit the docket. Because remember, when Trump was the subject of a huge investigation in the New York Times, where in the lead they accused him of fraud. They accused him of tax fraud with his inheritance. And presumably went through their entire legal team, it went through their lawyers, and he didn't sue them. So yes, Trump files a lot of lawsuits against the media. He also makes a lot of threats, and he also does not follow through on a lot of them. Anything can happen in the lawsuit. Trump is going to war with Rupert Murdoch. This is another escalation of his sweep of defamation litigation against
Yeah.
major news organizations. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if the Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal sticks to its guns as it has so far in publishing this report.
And finally, Adam, how can folks who are watching right now see and hear more from you?
Thank you so much for that question, Brian. They can visit www.allrisenews.com. I'm also on Substack at All Rise News. I cover litigation all over the country and have covered a number of defamation cases, and this will be another one that will be absolutely on our radar.
And just a quick note for folks who are watching, Adam is not backed by some major network. He is an independent reporter. We've had the privilege of being able to speak to him while he was in New York or in Tennessee covering the Comar Abrego Garcia story down in Florida. And so he's covering all of these expenses. This is what independent journalism is. And so for folks who are looking to support this kind of journalism, please make sure to go to All Rise News and sign up and subscribe if you have the ability to do so. Adam, appreciate your time, and we'll definitely follow up with this story as we have any updates.
Thank you so much, Brian. Always a pleasure.